The night wrapped around Claire Whitmore like the heavy, damp fog that often rolled through her quiet neighborhood. She lay in bed, the faint glow from her bedside lamp casting elongated shadows across the walls. It had been nearly 6 months since the divorce. But some nights felt like she was still trapped in the aftermath of that chaos, her heart racing as if the memories were fresh and raw. Claire had tried to rebuild her life, moving into a modest 2-bedroom house that she had hoped would be a sanctuary. The walls, painted a soft, calming blue, spoke of new beginnings. But as she lay there, the peace she craved felt tenuous, as if it could shatter with the next sound. And there it was, a soft, unsettling scratching noise echoing from beneath her floorboards. She told herself it was just raccoons. The neighborhood was known for its wildlife, the way the trees loomed over the street like guardians of secrets. But deep down, a primal fear gnawed at her. It was a sound that felt too deliberate, too purposeful. Claire turned over, pulling the comforter tighter around her shoulders. She closed her eyes, willing herself to sleep. But the scratching continued, a rhythmic reminder that something lurked just out of sight. The next morning, Claire tried to brush off the incident. After all, she had a busy day ahead, editing manuscripts for clients, sipping coffee from her favorite chipped mug, and engaging in the mundane rituals that kept her grounded. Yet as she moved around the house, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It started with small signs. She found a jar of peanut butter that had been opened, the lid slightly askew, though she was sure she hadn't touched it in days. The dust on her kitchen counter had been disturbed, as if someone had brushed against it just moments before she entered. And then there were the footprints, faint, almost invisible, but unmistakable in their presence, leading from the kitchen to the hallway and back again. Claire's heart raced as she examined the prints. They were too small for a man's foot, but too large for a child's. Had someone been in her house? She felt a shiver run down her spine, a cold sweat forming on her brow. Just raccoons, she whispered to herself, trying to rationalize the irrational. But the scratching beneath the floorboards persisted, growing more frantic as the days passed. It was as if whatever was down there was aware of her growing paranoia, feeding off it, savoring her fear like a fine wine. One evening, she decided to confront the noise. Armed with only a flashlight and a mix of dread and determination, she knelt by the small access door that led to the crawlspace. The wood was old and warped, creaking as she tugged it open. A wave of stale air rushed out, carrying with it the scent of mold and decay. "Hello?" she called, her voice trembling. Silence answered her, heavy and suffocating. After a moment, she steeled herself and crawled inside, the flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The narrow space felt oppressive, the walls closing in around her. She shined the light around, revealing cobwebs and dust, but no signs of life, just the echo of her own breathing. But then she saw a glint of something metallic peeking out from under a pile of old insulation. She reached for it, pulling it free. It was a small, rusted key. "What the hell?" she murmured, confusion swirling in her mind. As she stood to leave, she noticed something else, a faint outline in the dust on the ground. It looked like a box, partially hidden by the debris. Claire's heart raced as she knelt again, brushing away the dirt and cobwebs until she uncovered a small, weathered diary. Her breath caught in her throat as she recognized it. It was her childhood diary, the one she had thought lost years ago, filled with the innocent musings of a girl who dreamed big, but was always afraid of the dark. "How did this get here?" she whispered, her mind racing back to the days spent writing in it, pouring out her heart and soul. She opened it, the pages yellowed with age, and began to read. The entries were a mix of excitement and fear, of crushes and heartbreaks, of dreams shattered and rebuilt. But then she stumbled upon a passage that froze her blood. Asterisk. "I wish I could be brave like the girls in the stories. I'm afraid of the dark, but I want to be seen. I want someone to understand me." A chill raced down her spine. Who had read this? Who had taken her diary? Suddenly, the scratching noise returned, louder than before, echoing through the crawlspace. It felt like a warning, a reminder that she was not alone. Claire scrambled back, her heart pounding in her chest. She clutched the diary to her chest, feeling its weight like a stone. She had to get out. She had to call someone. As she crawled back towards the opening, the air grew colder, and she felt a presence behind her. She turned quickly, shining her flashlight into the shadows. But there was nothing there, just the darkness, thick and suffocating. Once outside, she slammed the access door shut, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She stumbled backwards, leaning against the wall of her house, trying to gather her thoughts. Maggie. She shouted, pulling out her phone and dialing her best friend. Hey, what's up? Maggie's voice was cheerful, but Claire could hear the underlying concern. I need you to come over. Something's wrong, Claire stammered, her voice shaking. On my way, Maggie replied, the tone shifting instantly to one of urgency. While waiting for Maggie, Claire paced the living room, her mind racing. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. She glanced at the windows, the curtains drawn tight, but the sensation of eyes upon her was relentless. When Maggie arrived, Claire wasted no time. She dragged her into the kitchen, the air thick with tension. Claire, you look like you've seen a ghost, Maggie said, her brow furrowed with concern. I found something in the crawlspace, Claire replied, her voice barely above a whisper. She opened the diary, flipping it open to the entry she had read earlier. This was in there. Someone's been in my house, Maggie. Someone's been watching me. Maggie examined the diary, her expression shifting from confusion to alarm. This is your childhood diary? But how did it get here? And what do you mean someone's been watching you? Claire took a deep breath, recounting the strange noises, the footprints, the feeling of being observed. As she spoke, she saw Maggie's skepticism morph into concern. We need to call the police, Maggie said, her voice firm. This isn't normal, Claire. You can't just ignore it. I already called Detective Ruiz, Claire said, her voice trembling. He didn't believe me. He thought I was just imagining it. Let me talk to him, Maggie insisted, pulling out her phone. As Maggie made the call, Claire felt a sense of dread creeping back in. The walls felt like they were closing in, and even the air seemed to thicken around her. Detective Ruiz, this is Maggie. I'm Claire's friend. We need to talk about a serious situation. Claire drifted into her own thoughts. The diary still clutched tightly in her hands. Why was someone stalking her? Why did they have her diary? And then it hit her, the divorce. The secret she had buried deep within her past. She had always thought her life was ordinary. But what if someone had been watching her all along, Claire? Maggie's voice broke through her thoughts. Detective Ruiz is on his way. He'll be here soon, Claire said, her voice distant. They waited in silence, the weight of the house pressing down on them. Claire could hear the faintest scratching again, a reminder that whatever was lurking beneath her home was still there, still watching. When Detective Ruiz arrived, he surveyed the house with a practiced eye. He said, You've heard noises from the crawlspace, he asked, his tone skeptical but professional. Yes, Claire replied, her heart racing. And I found my childhood diary down there. Someone's been living in my crawlspace. Living Ruiz raised an eyebrow, glancing at Maggie. It's like watching me, Claire insisted, her voice rising with urgency. I'm not crazy, I swear. Ruiz nodded, but Claire could see the doubt lingering in his eyes. Let's take a look, he said, leading them to the small access door. As he opened it, the stale air rushed out, and Claire felt her heart drop. Stay back, Ruiz ordered, shining his flashlight into the darkness. They all stood there, the tension palpable, as Ruiz descended into the crawlspace. Claire held her breath, praying that whatever nightmare was hidden beneath her home wouldn't come to light. Minutes passed, and just as Claire began to feel a glimmer of hope, Ruiz emerged, his expression grave. There's no one down there, he said, his voice steady but tinged with concern. Just some old insulation and a few boxes. Claire's heart sank. But I heard noises. I found my diary. Maggie, can you take a look? Ruiz asked, gesturing for her to come forward. Maggie stepped cautiously into the crawlspace, her flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. Claire watched, her heart racing, as Maggie examined the area. Claire, there's nothing here, Maggie called back, her voice echoing. Claire shouted, her voice cracking, unimagining this. Ruiz stepped closer, his expression softening. I believe you, Claire, but without evidence, there's not much I can do. Suggest you secure your home, check the locks, maybe install some cameras. Claire nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. I will, I promise. After Ruiz left, Claire felt an overwhelming sense of defeat. What if he comes back? She whispered to Maggie, her voice trembling. He won't, Maggie assured her, but her eyes betrayed her concern. That night, Claire set up a hidden camera in her kitchen, determined to capture any signs of the intruder. She felt a mix of fear and resolve as she positioned it, hoping that she would finally have proof of the nightmare that had invaded her life. As she lay in bed that night, she replayed the day's events in her mind, her heart racing at the thought of what might happen next. She had taken control, but the fear still clung to her like a shadow. The next morning, Claire awoke with a sense of dread. She felt the weight of the world pressing down on her as she replayed the footage in her mind. What if she saw something that shattered her already fragile reality? With trembling hands, she opened the camera app on her phone and reviewed the footage from the previous night. Her heart raced as she watched the timestamp tick forward, the mundane moments of her evening unfolding before her eyes. And then she saw a figure emerging from the crawlspace, moving with an eerie grace. The man was cloaked in shadows, but Claire could see the outline of his body, the way he moved with a sickening familiarity. Her breath caught in her throat as he paused at her bedroom door, standing there for what felt like hours, whispering things that made her skin crawl. It was then that she realized he knew things about her that no one else could possibly know. He knew about her miscarriage, the one memory she had locked away, buried deep in her heart, a wound that never fully healed. He whispered her name, and in that moment, Claire felt the walls of her reality begin to crumble. "Who are you?" she gasped, her voice barely above a whisper. The man turned, and for a fleeting moment, she caught a glimpse of his face-hollowed cheeks, dark eyes that seemed to peer into her very soul. "I understand you better than anyone, Claire," he whispered, his voice sending chills down her spine. "I've watched you for so long. You're not alone anymore." The footage ended, but the horror lingered, wrapping around her like a vice. Claire's heart raced as she struggled to comprehend the gravity of what she had just witnessed. The man in the crawlspace wasn't just an intruder. He was a ghost from her past, a manifestation of her deepest fears and regrets. With a surge of adrenaline, Claire knew she couldn't stay any longer. She had to confront him, to face the darkness that had invaded her life. Grabbing her keys, she dashed out the front door, determined to find the man who had haunted her dreams and her reality. The sun hung low in the sky as she approached the small access door, her heart pounding in her chest. She opened the door to the crawlspace, the darkness beckoning her like a siren's call. With a deep breath, she crawled inside, her flashlight illuminating the shadows that had once felt so familiar. "Show yourself," she shouted, her voice echoing off the walls. For a moment, there was silence, and then she heard the scratching noise, louder than ever, reverberating through the cramped space. "Why are you doing this?" Claire demanded, her voice trembling but fierce. "Because you need to understand," he replied, his voice a low, menacing whisper. "You've hidden from the truth for too long. You think you can run from your past, but I will always be here." Claire's heart raced as she felt the walls closing in around her. "You don't know me," she shouted, but her voice faltered. "I know everything," he replied, his tone calm and collected. "Every secret, every fear. You've built this world around you, but it's nothing but a facade. I'm here to help you tear it down." As she backed away, Claire's foot caught on something, a box, hidden beneath the insulation. She stumbled, reaching out to steady herself, and when she looked down, she saw a collection of objects, memories from her past, each one a reminder of the life she had tried to escape. "Stop!" she shouted, her voice echoing through the darkness. But he only laughed, a sound that sent shivers down her spine. "You can't stop me, Claire. You've invited me in. You've let me see you." In that moment, Claire realized that she was trapped, not just in the crawlspace, but in her own mind, held captive by the memories she had tried to bury. "No more," she whispered, her resolve hardening. "I will not let you control me." With a surge of determination, she lunged forward, grabbing the box and throwing it at him. "Get away from me." He recoiled, and for the first time she saw fear in his eyes. "Leave me alone," Claire screamed, her voice echoing through the crawlspace. She crawled towards the exit, adrenaline surging through her veins as she felt the weight of his presence behind her. Just as she reached the opening, she felt a hand grasp her ankle, pulling her back into the darkness. "You can't escape," he hissed, his grip tightening. But Claire fought back, kicking him away with all her strength. She scrambled out of the crawlspace, gasping for breath as she tumbled onto the grass outside. The sunlight felt blinding as she scrambled to her feet, her heart racing. She turned to face the crawlspace, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "Stay away from me," she shouted, her voice fierce. But the darkness remained, an ever-present reminder of the battle she had just fought. With a newfound sense of determination, Claire turned and ran, leaving behind the shadows that had haunted her for too long. As she crossed the threshold of her home, she knew that the journey was far from over. The fear, the memories would linger, but she was ready to face them head-on. In that moment, Claire Whitmore reclaimed her life, refusing to let the man in the crawlspace dictate her fate. She had faced her demons and emerged stronger, ready to confront whatever lay ahead.
Oh.
Even if the darkness still whispered her name, she would no longer be afraid. The shadows may linger, but she would not let them define her. Claire stepped into the light, ready to rebuild, ready to live. The dim blue glow of Jenna's phone illuminated the faces of her friends, casting eerie shadows across the walls of her room. They were crammed together on the floor, their laughter echoing off the peeling paint and cluttered shelves, a stark contrast to the stillness of the night outside. Riley Tran leaned back against the bed, arms crossed, her skeptical gaze darting between Jenna and the others. "Are you really sure about this?" she asked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Playing with fire? Much? Come on, Riley," Jenna replied, rolling her eyes. "It was just a stupid internet challenge. You think I'd actually put us in danger?" She flipped her hair back and grinned, the picture of confidence. "Yeah, until someone gets abducted by a ghost or something," Marcus chimed in, his analytical mind already churning at the thought. He was Riley's closest friend, always the voice of reason, but even he couldn't suppress the thrill of the dare. But what if it's just a prank? What if we're just messing with each other? "Exactly," Jenna exclaimed, her enthusiasm infectious. "We're just going to open the door if we hear a knock after midnight. The worst that happens is we get scared and laugh about it later." "Sure, and the best that happens is we summon a demon," Riley muttered. But even she found her heart racing at the idea. The air felt electric, charged with a mixture of adrenaline and apprehension. As the clock struck 12, the group fell silent, the laughter fading into a tense hush. The only sound was the soft hum of the streetlights outside, casting flickering shadows across Jenna's room. They had all agreed to this, no turning back now. Riley felt a knot of unease twist in her stomach, but she pushed it aside. "Okay, let's do this," Jenna said, her voice barely above a whisper. She set the phone down, the screen now a beacon of light in the darkness as it recorded. "Lights off, everyone." Door unlocked. The room plunged into darkness, the only illumination coming from the phone. The silence grew heavy, wrapping around them like a shroud. Riley could feel her heartbeat echoing in her ears, a symphony of dread. They waited. 3 minutes passed, and the tension began to dissipate, replaced by nervous giggles and whispered jokes. "Junts." But just as Riley was about to suggest they call it a night, a sound shattered the stillness. A knock. 3 loud raps, rhythmic and deliberate, echoed through the hallway, sending chills down Riley's spine. "Who's going to open it?" Marcus asked, his voice shaky. "Not it," Jenna laughed. But there was a tremor in her tone. "I'll do it," Noah said, his bravado shining through the darkness. He stood up, the silhouette of his figure framed by the phone's light. "This is nothing, just a prank." "Wait, Noah," Riley said, but he was already striding toward the door. She felt a surge of panic, but it was drowned out by the thrill of the moment. With a deep breath, Noah turned the knob and pulled the door open. The hallway was empty, a yawning void stretching into the darkness beyond. Chill crept into the room, and for a moment, Riley thought she saw a shadow shift at the end of the corridor. But it was gone in an instant, leaving only silence in its wake. "See nothing?" Noah laughed, stepping back inside. But as he closed the door, a strange expression crossed his face, something like realization mixed with dread. The next morning, Riley woke to a flurry of notifications on her phone. Messages from Marcus, Jenna, and the rest of the group flooded her screen, each one more frantic than the last. "Is Noah? Has anyone seen him?" Riley's heart dropped as she read the messages. They had all gone to bed after the challenge, convinced it was just a joke.
Out.
But Noah hadn't come home. She felt a wave of nausea wash over her as she frantically texted back, "What do you mean he's missing?" The group met at the park later that day, the sun shining brightly overhead, stark contrast to the darkness that loomed in their hearts. Jenna paced back and forth, her confidence evaporating as fear took its place. I didn't think it would actually happen. I thought it was just a dumb joke. Look where we are, Marcus said, his voice tight. We need to find him. We can't just sit here, Riley's mind raced. They had to figure out what was happening. What if he just went home? Maybe he didn't want to hang out with us after the challenge, she suggested, but even she didn't believe it. Or maybe something happened when he opened the door, Marcus replied, his eyes wide with anxiety. Jenna's phone buzzed, and she glanced down, her face pale. I just got a video from my doorbell cam, she said, her voice trembling. It's weird. They all crowded around her phone, Jenna's hands shaking as she opened the video. The footage was grainy, the quality poor, but there was no mistaking the figure standing at her door. It was tall and distorted, its proportions wrong, like a glitch in reality. The figure seemed to shift, almost as if it were made of smoke and shadows, and then it vanished, leaving only the emptiness of the porch behind. What the hell was that? Riley gasped, her heart pounding. It can't be real, Marcus said, shaking his head. It has to be some kind of prank. But as they watched the video again, the truth began to sink in. This wasn't a hoax. It was something else entirely. They had awakened something with their dare. Something that had taken Noah. And now it was coming for them. The days that followed were a blur of fear and paranoia. Each night, as the clock approached midnight, Riley found herself unable to sleep, her mind racing with possibilities. She started seeing things out of the corner of her eyeshadows flitting past her window. Cold drafts that seemed to whisper her name. Jenna began to unravel, her bravado replaced with desperation. It's my fault, she confessed one night, tears streaming down her face. I started this. I brought this on us. Can't think like that, Marcus urged. But even he was beginning to crack. They were being hunted, and there was no way to escape it. It was on the fourth night, just after midnight, that Riley heard the knock on her door. 3 loud raps, the same as before. The sound echoed through her house, piercing the silence like a knife. She froze, her heart racing as she stared at her bedroom door, the wood seeming to pulse with an unnatural energy. Riley, a voice called from the other side, low and distorted. Open the door. It was Noah's voice, or what was left of it. No. Shh, Riley shouted, her hands trembling as she gripped the bat she kept by her bed. Go away. The knocking grew louder, more insistent, and Riley felt the walls closing in around her. She pressed her back against the headboard, her breath coming in short gasps. Riley, please, the voice begged, laced with desperation. I need you to help me. Open the door. She could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on her. If she opened the door, she would be inviting whatever was on the other side into her life. But if she didn't, what would happen to Noah? Riley, it was Marcus pounding on her window now. Riley, it's not him. Don't open the door. The conflict raged inside her, and as the knocking grew more frantic, she felt the darkness encroaching. This was no longer just a game, it was a test. Finally, with a surge of resolve, Riley swung open her bedroom window and shouted, Get out of here! We're done playing. The knocking stopped. The air grew still, and for a moment, she thought she had one. But then the voice shifted, growing deeper, resonating with an unearthly echo. You opened the door, Riley. You asked for this. The lights flickered, and the shadows in her room twisted and warped. Something seeped through the crack of her door, a darkness that pulsed and writhed, seeking to consume her. Riley turned to the bat, ready to fight, but she felt the weight of her own fear dragging her down. The darkness whispered her secrets, her doubts, her guilt. It knew her. And in that moment, she realized the truth. This wasn't just about Noah or the dare. This was about confronting the parts of herself she had buried, the fear of failure, the guilt of not being enough, the pain of losing those she loved. With a scream, she swung the bat against the door, shattering the silence. No, she yelled, the sound echoing in her own ears. You don't own me. The darkness recoiled, but it was too late. The door burst open, and Riley stumbled back, falling to the floor as a figure emerged from the shadows. It was faceless, a shape-shifting and swirling, but it was undeniably there an embodiment of her deepest fears. Face me, it commanded, its voice a cacophony of whispers. Riley pushed herself up, trembling but resolute. She had to confront this thing, to face the truth it represented. It was no longer just about survival. It was about reclaiming her power. "I won't let you take me," she declared, her voice stronger than she felt. "You're not real. You're just a reflection of my fears." The knocker twisted, its form distorting into 1,000 shapes, each one a fragment of her past moments she wished she could erase. But as she stood her ground, the shadows began to recede. "You opened the door," it hissed, its voice fading. "You asked for this." Riley took a step forward, and with it came a surge of defiance. "No, I choose to close it." With a final push, she slammed the door shut, sealing the darkness away. The room fell silent, the weight lifting as the shadows retreated into the night. But the victory was bittersweet. She knew the ritual had not ended. She had merely survived this encounter. As dawn broke, casting light across her room, Riley's phone buzzed with a notification. She glanced at the screen, her heart sinking. Another video had been uploaded, this time from someone else's doorbell cam, capturing the same figure she had faced. The challenge wasn't over. It was spreading, feeding on fear, and Riley realized that she had only begun to fight. The last scene lingered in her mind as she stared at her phone. In the distance, she could hear the faint sound of laughter. Another group of teens, unaware of the darkness that awaited them. And as the sun rose higher, Riley knew they would answer the knock, just like she had. After all, curiosity always beckons, and the door would always be waiting. The night was thick with the kind of silence that only comes when the world has turned off its lights and tucked itself into bed. The moon, a pale sentinel, cast a silvery glow across the suburban streets, illuminating the manicured lawns and picket fences that lined the neighborhood. Inside one of those houses, laughter erupted, a sound so vibrant it felt almost sacrilegious against the backdrop of the quiet night. Riley Tran sat cross-legged on the living room floor, her phone propped up against a stack of books, its camera recording the scene. The flickering light of the screen illuminated the faces of her friends, gathered for what they had dubbed the Midnight Door Challenge Dare that had recently gone viral. It started as a joke, a way to chase the boredom of a Friday night. But as the hours wore on, it became something more. "All right, everyone, just remember to look scared," Jenna Coyle, the ringleader, declared, her auburn hair bouncing as she gestured animatedly. She twirled a strand around her finger, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "When we hear the knock, it's showtime." "Yeah, because nothing screams fun like inviting a ghost into your house," Marcus Alvarez quipped, rolling his eyes. He sat beside Riley, his expression a mix of skepticism and concern. "Can we at least agree this is dumb?" came on, Marcus. "You're just scared," Jenna teased, nudging him playfully with her elbow. "Scared or smart?" He shot back, but Riley could see the flicker of excitement in his eyes. As they settled in, the atmosphere shifted, a heavy charge crackling in the air. Riley felt it too, an undercurrent of anticipation that made her skin prickle. She dismissed it with a roll of her eyes. Okay. Let's get this over with. It's just a stupid knock, right? What's the worst that could happen?" Noah, the quiet one, sat at the edge of the circle, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. He had been invited last minute, his presence both awkward and endearing. "I don't know, guys. What if something really does happen? Then we'll get 1,000,000 views. Jenna laughed, and the others joined in, the sound echoing off the walls like a spell broken. Midnight approached, each tick of the clock amplifying their laughter, until finally it struck 12. The atmosphere turned electric, the laughter fading into a nervous hum. Riley glanced at Marcus, who raised an eyebrow as if to say, "Are you ready for this?" They waited, hearts pounding, until at precisely 12:03 it came a knock. 3 sharp raps echoing through the house, resonating like a heartbeat in the stillness. "Go," Jenna shouted, and in a fit of bravado, Noah jumped to his feet. "Wait," Marcus called, but it was too late. Noah approached the door, the wooden surface looming large in his eyes. The air grew thick, the kind of weight only dread can bring. He turned back to them, a nervous smile breaking across his face. "This is dumb, right?" "Totally," Riley said, her voice steadier than she felt. He reached for the doorknob, and as he twisted it, the laughter fell away, replaced by a silence that felt almost sentient, watching. The door swung open. Empty darkness awaited on the other side. No one stood there, no trick-or-treaters or neighbors, just the void of night. Noah hesitated, his expression shifting from playful to uncertain. "See, nothing," he said, but his voice trembled. Then, without warning, he stepped outside, the door closing behind him with a soft click. "Dude, what are you doing?" Marcus shouted, but Noah didn't respond. They waited, breath caught in their throats. Seconds stretched into minutes, and the reality of the situation began to sink in. What had started as a joke morphed into something much darker, the laughter fading into an oppressive silence. Riley's heart raced as she approached the door. "Noah?" she called out, her voice shaking. "Come back," but nothing answered. After what felt like an eternity, Marcus pulled out his phone. "Calling him," he said. But as he dialed, a creeping dread filled the room. The call went straight to voicemail, and Riley's stomach dropped. "He's probably just messing with us," Jenna said, her voice too bright, too forced. Right? But as the moments passed, their bravado crumbled. They searched the yard, calling his name, but Noah was gone. The street swallowed him whole, leaving them with nothing but the echo of their own voices. The next day, Noah didn't come to school. His absence was a gaping hole, and when they asked teachers, friends, and even his parents, no one seemed to remember him. His phone was found in the driveway, untouched and silent. Riley tried to shake it off, to convince herself that it was just a prank gone wrong, but the fear lodged itself in her throat. She spent the day in a haze, the world around her blurring into a dull ache of confusion and despair. The following night, when the clock struck 12 once more, the knocking came again, 3 sharp raps. Always at 12:03. "Guys," Marcus whispered, his face pale. "It's happening again." Riley felt the air grow thick with tension, and Jenna's eyes darted nervously around the room. It's just a coincidence, right? But deep down, they all knew better. That night, Jenna didn't sleep. She paced the floor, her mind racing with guilt and paranoia. What if we opened the door for it? What if we brought it here? We didn't bring anything? Marcus replied, his voice steady but shaken. "It's just a stupid dare. Noah's gone, but we can't let it get to us." But as the days turned into a week, the knocks continued, each one a taunt, a reminder of what they'd lost. Jenna became a shell of herself, her laughter replaced with hollow eyes and frayed nerves. The way she flinched at every sound, the way she clutched her phone like a lifeline, Riley could see her unraveling, and it terrified her. Riley began to dig into the origins of the dare, desperate for answers. She scoured the internet, combing through forums and old posts. What she found chilled her to the bone. A trail of disappearances, each linked to a similar dare, each one buried in the forgotten corners of the web. But it didn't end there. One night, while sifting through an old archive, she stumbled upon a post dated years before the internet existed, her own handwriting describing the same ritual, the same dare. The words spilled from her childhood mind, a warning that felt like a premonition. Her heart raced as she pieced it together. The knocker wasn't just a spirit, it was a ritual, a hungry entity that fed on fear and curiosity. It had been waiting for someone to open the door, and it had chosen them long before they ever knocked. "Riley, you need to stop," Marcus urged, his voice breaking into her thoughts. "We're obsessing over this. We need to focus on finding a way to stop it." But she couldn't. The truth felt too important, too urgent. "We have to understand what we're dealing with. It's not just a game anymore, Marcus. It's real." As they stood in the dim light of her living room, the air thick with tension, the knocking came again. 3 raps always at 12:03. "Riley, don't open the door," Marcus warned, but the pull was too strong. "Why not?" she shot back, defiance rising in her chest. "What if it helps us understand? What if we can confront it? Or what if it takes you too?" The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of their reality, but Riley couldn't back down. She had to know. With a deep breath, she approached the door, her heart pounding in her chest. The knocking echoed in her ears, a siren's call that beckoned her closer. She reached for the doorknob, her fingers trembling, and twisted it open. Darkness yawned before her, an abyss that seemed to stretch into infinity. She stepped outside, drawn by an unseen force, and the door slammed shut behind her. The world around her warped and twisted, shadows stretching unnaturally, the air thick with the scent of cold fear. She couldn't tell where she was, only that she felt watched. "Riley," Marcus shouted from inside, panic lacing his voice. But the darkness was swallowing her whole, and as she turned back, she saw not her friends, but the ghostly visage of her own reflection staring back at her. "You knew it," whispered, the voice a chilling echo of her own. "You knew how this would end, and still you played along." The realization crashed over her like a wave, drowning her in guilt and fear. She had invited this into their lives, had laughed along with her friends as they dared the unknown. As the darkness closed in around her, Riley felt the weight of her choices settle on her shoulders. She could feel the knocker's presence, a malignant force that thrived on her fear, her guilt. In that moment she understood. The choice was never hers to make. The door had been opened long before she took her first step into the darkness. Then, just as suddenly as it had come, the vision faded. "Riley, what happened?" Marcus rushed forward, eyes wide with concern. She started, but the words caught in her throat. The weight of the truth pressed down on her, suffocating. The knocking came again, relentless, echoing through the house. "Riley," Jenna screamed, her voice tinged with desperation. "We need to do something." But what could they do? The knocker had already marked them. As the night wore on, the isolation deepened. The lights flickered, and Riley felt the walls closing in around her. It was a trap, a labyrinth of fear designed to unravel her sanity. "Riley, we have to leave," Marcus urged, but the door wouldn't budge. The power flickered, plunging them into darkness, and the knocking became a cacophony, each sound a reminder of what they had awakened. In the chaos, Jenna's laughter turned to hysteria. "It's coming for us. We have to hide." But there was nowhere to hide. The house twisted and contorted, shadows creeping along the walls, whispers curling around them like smoke. "Riley, please," Marcus begged, his voice breaking. "You can't let it take us." She looked at him, and in that moment, she saw the flicker of hope in his eyes. But the knocking grew louder, more insistent, drowning out their voices. Riley's heart raced as she realized they could not escape this. The knocker had chosen them, and now it was time to pay the price. With a sudden surge of determination, she faced the door once more. She had to confront it, had to understand the darkness that had ensnared them. "Open it, Riley," Marcus shouted, panic rising in his voice. "Don't do this." But it was too late. She reached for the doorknob again, her heart pounding in her chest. As she twisted it open, the darkness swallowed her whole. The world around her shattered into fragments of memory and fear. In that moment, she was no longer Riley Tran, the witty skeptic. She was a vessel for something far older, far darker, a reminder that some doors should never be opened. And as the knock echoed one last time, a new group of teens gathered outside her house, laughing and daring each other to play their own game. The cycle continued, the knocker waiting patiently for its next invitation. In the end, Riley was left behind, a whisper in the wind, a memory erased, and somewhere in the depths of the darkness, the knock echoed on, waiting for the next curious soul to answer.